Yeah, so everyone who's on here, you can mute, you can unmute. If you need to get our attention, you can also chat. There's a chat box if you look at the bottom of the screen, so you can always chat in, type in some questions or anything if you don't want to say it. Also, if you really want to get some attention, just like put your hand over your screen because that's very visible. And otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Emily. Emily and I met through Facebook and then had the honor of actually meeting in person a couple weeks ago, was it? Or was it last week?
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to New York this summer, so we may be able to actually meet again.
Yeah.
So yes. Over to you.
What was that?
I'll turn it over to you.
Oh yeah, thank you. So I'm Emily, and I'm in New York. I think it's probably Virginia is the same time zone. We're on the later end. It's like 10 o'clock at night here, so I'm a little tired. It's been a long day, but I'm so excited to be on this call with you all. And yeah, Kristen and I connected because I sort of saw that she was doing a sort of business of yoga Facebook group, and I was doing something similar. My group focuses on building your business around private yoga lessons because that's really my area of expertise. That's what I've focused on for the past couple of years. And I realized that I was unique amongst yoga teachers in that I just really didn't know a lot of other teachers who had done what I did in really focusing on privates. And I'm not a yoga therapist, and I know that like there's more and more yoga therapists who are building private practices because that's more the way they work. But I'm not by training or I'm not a certified yoga therapist. I think in ways I work the way they do, but that's not my training. And I built a really successful, really thriving private clientele here in New York. And I have a lot of pride in figuring out a really financially sustainable and more than sustainable, but like lucrative career for myself as a yoga teacher, which I know so many teachers struggle with. And I know that there's just a lot of frustration around that. And I just was hearing so many teachers ask for help with it. And I thought one of the best ways I could support a lot of people was creating a Facebook group. And I've also started offering services as a coach for yoga teachers, as a business of yoga coach, focusing on helping people build private clientele. Yeah. And so I know that Kristen wanted to have me on tonight to do like a question and answer session. That's correct? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I have my mute on.
The dog. Yeah.
Because private yoga is not my area of expertise. I am actually a yoga therapist, but I have yet to build my own private practice too. So, I think this is just as beneficial to me as it is to anyone else who's listening.
Oh, does it go to Anita because she's typing?
Oh, I think so.
Interesting.
You can mute yourself, Anita, and then you can type away.
Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions related to private yoga, anything about like the marketing aspect of building private clientele, both in the sense of like online internet marketing, but there's also like a whole world of marketing that doesn't include the internet, or any questions about like how to structure a private session, or how it's different from teaching groups. And I know Monica sent some really great questions ahead, and I had a chance to read them, so I'm happy to answer those. I'm seeing this question come in from Anita. Kristen, what do you think? Should I answer one of Monica's questions first? Is it like a first come, first serve?
I think yeah, let's start with Monica's and then Anita will get to yours.
Okay. So Monica, would you mind just like reminding me what one of your questions was, whichever one you want answered most?
Yeah, so the first one was, the nature of yoga is very disaggregated, especially private yoga, that is specifically. And what did you find was the most successful, marketing tactic to approach such a disaggregated customer base? And how does one get in front of these kind of people? Because it's not like, you know, for me, like right now I'm working in a gym where I'm around thousands of clientele a day, and then that gym refers me to work with those people privately. That's just not the situation. So how do I get in front of these people? Because building those relationships with those people, it's an individual process with each one, you know, and the whole private yoga is just disaggregated. That's all I can really kind of say about it, right? So how do we get
Right. That's a great question. I love that question. And just to like clarify, because when I first read your question, I was like disaggregated, and I looked up that word, and just in case anybody else is like, what does she mean? I think what you mean is like sort of separate, right? That like people seeking private sessions are not necessarily like all in one room together, because there may be like beginners or people who have never set foot in a yoga studio because they're, yeah, that's what I figured. And you know, when I saw that question, the first thing that came to mind was that, well, like the internet was the first thing that came to mind, because like when I was getting started, when I decided, okay, I'm really going to focus on private clients, one of the first things I asked myself was like, I tried to like get into the mind of somebody who might be seeking privates. And that's like a marketing technique, or like not a technique. So funny to think of technique as market, but like that's like a marketing concept of like understanding your customers, understanding your customer avatar, which is like if you could wrap all of your potential customers or potential clients into like one avatar, like who would that person be, and how old are they, and why are they interested in private yoga. And when I started like studying marketing and doing that, and I thought to myself, well, one avatar might be somebody who's never been to a yoga class, has never set foot in a yoga studio. They've heard yoga is great. They are somebody who has the time and resources to invest in private lessons, and they're drawn to private lessons because they're maybe like really too busy to make it to a studio, or they're just not really interested in group classes. They're maybe embarrassed. And I was like, okay, where does that person look? Where would they be looking for me? And the most like kind of at the top of my head, what I could come up with was I was like, well, the internet. And I thought they'd probably go sit down at their computer, and like, what would anybody do, right? They'd probably go in Google and type into their search engine like private yoga instructor or private yoga teacher. And I started playing around with like becoming that person and typing it in and seeing like what some of the top hits were. And I noticed like, okay, so some teachers were popping up who had listed themselves as a Google business listing. And I was, okay, so I need a Google business listing, and I need to get reviews on it so that I rank high. And I saw like thumbtack.com where I live. I saw that came up at the top. And I was like, okay, well, I need to have a profile on Thumbtack. And that's I figured if these are the things that are popping up when I search that, then chances are there's opportunity to meet clients that way. That said, I'm not of the belief that the internet is the only place to connect with great private clients. It's one place, but I see it as unlimited. You could meet them anywhere. Yeah.
Cool. And just to kind of go, you know, a little bit deeper with that, for the most part, have you found that your students have found you online? What's the like percentage that have found you online, or just word of mouth or whatever?
Yeah, actually for me, yes. For me, most of them have found me online. I think, and I've studied it, and I wish I had like my little, sheet of like analytics about it in front of me right now. But from what I can remember, I think like the majority of the leads that I generate come first from my website. And what's important, like a sub note of that, is that like it's got to be a good website, and it's got to be a website that's optimized for like what you're trying to do. So if what you're trying to do is private clients, then your website should really focus on that. And that, like, what I see a lot of yoga teachers do is they just kind of like they have a website and private yoga is like somewhere on there, but it's kind of like, it can almost seem like an afterthought or just kind of gets lost in like everything you do. And I think the more we niche, the more powerful our messaging is, you know, and the more clear it is what we do. So if you're like really sure that you want to specialize in one-on-ones for any reason, then your website should really emphasize that, which mine does. So website, and then like, yeah, Google business listing has been big for me. And then there's like a few others, like something nextdoor.com, which is like a community board. I've like posted little messages on there about my work, and I've found a lot of clients that way. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so then I'll take Anita's question. Unless maybe I already answered it. We'll say, I would love to know where you predominantly see your private clients. Do you go to them or do they come to you? Okay, I didn't answer that. That's a great question. So personally, I like to work with my clients in their homes. I work, like I focus on the neighborhoods nearby me and where I live. And I kind of know that like, the people that live around here, they're I feel like they're my neighbors, and I kind of know that like for the most part I'm going to be comfortable going over to their homes. They're like, and I screen, you know, I don't just like show up to somebody's house that I've barely had an exchange with, because I know with this question like the safety aspect comes up a lot. And super important to be safe when doing any kind of one-on-one work with people, when going into people's homes. So I do work with people at home, and I screen first. I have a good phone conversation with them, like nice and long, and I really feel out like, do I feel comfortable with this person on the phone? Do they feel like somebody who's home? I would feel really comfortable going into their home. And I personally, like I trust my intuition about that pretty well. But you know, not everyone would, and depending on who you are and where you live, you may not be comfortable going to people's homes. I have also rented studio space and had clients meet me there. And when I do that, I just factor the cost of the studio rental into what the client pays. Sometimes I tell them it's an additional cost if we meet at a studio. Sometimes I just kind of work the rate out and just don't even bother making it complicated for them. And I just tell them this is the rate, but I know I worked it in to include the studio rental. And do they come to me? I was playing around with it for a little bit, but I don't own a home. I rent a home. And I was feeling like a little bit funny about doing like business on my landlord's property. It's something that I would maybe look into some more, but I would want to like discuss it with my landlord and like make sure it's okay. Yeah.
I have a question, Emily. Follow up. So if you have a client who wants to meet at a studio and then you work out the studio rental into your rates, that means you're not advertising your rates either. Is that true? Or do you just kind of upfront say it's an extra cost or something like that?
Like on my website, I don't advertise my rates. And that's part of why, because like my rates can vary depending on that. I even let my rates vary a little bit. Like if I get a request and it's like I'm super busy that day and that's like the only day they can do and they really want to do it, like I might increase my rate a little bit to help myself feel like motivated and like available to do it. But like sometimes, like say I really needed a client. I wanted to pick up a new client and maybe I posted on nextdoor.com about my work, and maybe I did include the rate, which I might from time to time. Generally, I just wait till I'm on the phone with them to tell them the rate. But if I ever did mention the rate on my advertising and then later had to adjust the cost, I would just tell them. I would just say, since you want to meet in a studio or since we need to meet in a studio because maybe they're just out of my range, geographically, then I would tell them I need to adjust the rate.
Okay. Does that, I'm curious about, do you offer like a package or of any sort with a discount? And And also, like, how many repeat clients do you see? Like, are people wanting to schedule with you weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or is it just a one-time deal?
Yeah, the way I work is very much like in an ongoing sense. Like when I was like sort of starting out or like really kind of building this out more, I was going to psychotherapy once a week. And I loved the one-on-one every week. Like I loved like the building a relationship, and I was always finding myself saying like, I want to be a therapist, you know, because I wanted to be on the other end. And I started to see like, oh, like I could do this with yoga. Like I live in New York. There's a lot of people that I think would love to have an ongoing relationship with a private yoga teacher. And the more I like shifted into that mindset of like, I think a lot of people would want to do this, I know I want to do it, the more it felt like possible, because I sort of used to think like, well, who would want to do that? But I shifted mindset around it. And so I do like I've like a client I've been working with for a year now. I don't know if I have anyone who I've been with for longer than a year at this moment, because I think it was about a year ago that I kind of made that shift and started like saying like, that's the way I work. It's an ongoing thing. I'm looking for people that are committed. Was there another part of your question that I missed? Or is that it?
I'm trying to think too.
Oh, packages. You asked if I do packages. Yeah. I do like packs of 10 a lot. Yeah. I like to like be paid for 10 sessions ahead, because it helps me feel like I have like a good amount of money in my bank account, you know, as opposed to like always waiting for like little payments every day. Yeah.
I know probably long term you'll find out more, but I know massage therapists who I know personally, who give out the packages, but then someone doesn't finish up their package for a couple of years, and then sometimes it lands on this day when they're like, oh really? And then it's that feeling of I have to work for free even though they've paid for it in the past. Do you find that happening at all, or are people pretty good at sticking with their packages?
My people use up their packages. Yeah. I mean, I want. You know, what was that?
Maybe it comes down to some coaching of the client. So you're almost an incentive to sign up next time.
Yeah. I think like it's so much about like how we show up from the beginning, and like how we create the like. I like to say like we need to lead our clients. Like they need to know how we work. Like, and this is so perfect for like what you're doing with your group, because this is really about like being a professional. You know, that like as a yoga teacher, we can like show up and really be a professional, and that when somebody reaches out and wants to work with me, I really try to like lead them and be very clear, like this is how I work. And it's not just because I want to, it's because like that's what I believe will be of best service to them. Like, because we know as teachers that a consistent yoga practice is a lot more meaningful than just like doing it once in a while, or like not being really committed, you know? So yeah, like I from the beginning, I'm clear with them. I say to them, yeah, the way I work is in an ongoing sense. People have been working with me for many months or for a year, and yeah, that's what this is. And I just try to like build really good relationships with them too, so that they kind of feel like they can't live without it, and it's an important part of their life, you know? Yeah.
No, I think you're speaking to probably what the yoga teacher struggle is, because we don't, we try to be so open and embracing everything, and everything's good, but in a way we do need to step into that leadership role and coach the client. Like, this will enhance your life better if you do it, ongoing or on a regular basis, or however we want to language that.
Exactly. Yeah. We need to coach them. We need to lead them. Yeah.
Without
It's
being
like,
a car salesman at the same time.
yeah, and we
Right?
don't have to be, because it's really just like, it's truthfulness, it's satya. It's like,
Exactly.
we know that the truth is that like yoga practice should be consistent and committed, and like, so in a way to kind of just like allow people to be very flaky or not committed or like, you know, not showing up, we're just like, we're not really being yoga teachers if we allow that, right?
Yeah, so almost holding our students responsible, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're teachers of the yamas and the niyamas and not just asana.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know
So,
Anita was asking about, I know, Monica, you have a couple other questions too. But since we were talking about packages, the price for a package of 10 sessions.
yeah, I actually just multiply my hourly rate by 10. So like a lot of teachers always ask me like, do you give a discount when you do a package? Do you do that like as incentive for getting somebody to commit to it versus like the hour to hour? And then you know what? I did used to do that when I was much newer at this. I did that because I did have that sort of mindset of like, oh, I have to trick them into, not trick them, but, you know, I felt a little bit like I needed to give people incentive in terms of the financial investment. And then the more I got into it, and I wish somebody had told me this, but I probably wouldn't have heard it or like wouldn't have been ready for it maybe. But the more I got into it, the more I realized like somebody who's looking to invest in private yoga, which they know is it's going to be more than going to a studio, to group classes. Somebody who's like already willing to invest and ready for that kind of like investment in themselves, they're not really a bargain shopper in this context. Like they're already prepared to invest in this. And so I don't really need to give discounts unless they ask me for it, which they might, right? Like if I, you know, I just multiply my hourly rate by 10 and tell them like what works best for me and for everyone is if you commit to 10 sessions ahead, right? Because it really is for them. It's not just for me, it's for them to have the 10 sessions paid for, out of like, that's out of the way. It's on our schedule. We have the Google Calendar dates. That, yeah, I can just say, let's commit. And then if they happen to say, can you do a discount for that? Sure, I might do 10% off, but nobody's ever asked me. So
That's a really good point though. I mean, if someone is signing up for private yoga or like what I do with yoga therapy, they already are investing in themselves. Like if we say that we're in a healing industry, these people are going beyond what the insurance industry is paying for already, saying out of pocket, I'm worth the investment in myself to do this.
Yeah.
And I think
I love that.
as yoga teachers I don't know if you all consider yourself healers or not, but I consider myself a healer. I think that's one of the hardest things. As a healer, we want it to be accessible to everybody. And yet with the yoga therapy, what I've found is the people who don't want to discount, the people who are willing to pay are actually the ones that are willing to put in the investment and the work that it takes to get to wherever they're wanting to go. So just kind of that goes into money mindset too, which I think is a big part of this conversation.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's so much about mindset. And that's so much of the coaching work that I do with yoga teachers. Like people always I find teachers are wanting to know strategy a lot. They're wanting to know like, how did you do the marketing? What's the strategy? What's the trick? And I find myself saying like a lot of it is not strategy, it's psychology. A lot of it is shifting your mindset and thinking like differently about money and about opportunity and about possibility, and just seeing that there's more opportunity than you think, and this kind of thing, that like we don't have to, there's a lot of people, we don't have to convince them, we don't have to sell, because they're ready to invest. And I love, Kristen, what you said about like they're already going outside like what insurance covers. Yeah, Totally. Mm.
Emily,
Okay.
just to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit more, which sort of segues into my second question. Like I have experience back home doing private yoga, and in the beginning I was like you, where I was like, oh, let's just discount this so I can attract people in, and I fell into the trap of only charging students like $25 a session, which is so affordable and so cheap. And I'll never do that again. So I've made that mistake and I've learned from it. And I'm doing some private yoga sessions here now in Australia, but it's arranged through the studio that I'm kind of working under. She sort of developed an agency style component within her yoga studio business, and she's making a cut off of it, but I'm making a higher amount now, which is great. But I don't have to maintain the relationship in a way where I don't have to be the one to sell her more packages. If she wants to repeat, that's all in the manager's job. But yeah. I know I'm going to need to start taking this on if I really want to take my own business further here in this country. So with my next question that I had that I sent you, like scenario based here, you know, say you're a prospective client has contacted you and said, I'd love to meet up with you to talk more about, you know, the services that you offer. I really feel like I need yoga in my life, right? That usually how it kind of goes, right? And, you know, they talk with you, the vibe is really good. You know, you can see yourself working with this person is really jiving with what you're offering, until you get to the part where you talk about the cost, and then the energy, the dynamic changes, and automatically they're like, nope, closed off. Like, I can't afford that. I won't pay that. Sorry, Emily. Like,
Yeah.
You know, have you ever had that before? And can you walk us through maybe like what have been your strategies to overcome that and help steer them in a direction where they're coming back to value and, you know, this is for their health and well-being and such?
It's a great question. Yeah. And I know that that's like such a big question for so many teachers, because I think a lot of teachers would like love to pick up a few private clients or to focus more on private clients. But I think a lot of what holds them back is that they're nervous and afraid around that conversation. And particularly with yoga, we are a little bit confused about how money comes in to play with it, because it's a culture of, we want to reach as many as possible with it. And it's a culture of a lot of like donation based. And so when I read your question earlier, like my first reaction to it was that I don't get a lot of that these days, because I've set up my online marketing in a way that it speaks to people, and it speaks to people who are ready to invest, and it presents itself as a sort of like luxury thing. I don't know if luxury is the right word, but it presents my marketing. Like if you visit my website, it's privateyogabrooklyn.com. Is that okay, Kristen? Yeah, okay. Here, I'll just give the link.
Sorry, I said yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you look around my website, I feel like you get a feel that if you landed on my site, like it kind of, you get the feeling that it's not a cheap thing. I was strategic about that, because I did that like as a service. I feel I did that as a service to anyone who lands on my page, because that way it sort of filters out the people that's not the thing they're looking for. And there are things for people that are looking for affordable yoga. I don't feel that I'm stealing from the people who are not ready to invest or can't invest, because I know that there are lots of studio classes that are affordable. I know that there are, there are donation-based classes available, community centers and YMCAs where you can participate in yoga for an affordable price. And I've made a decision about my own business and my own life that's not at this point in my life what I'm doing. I did that for my first couple years, 3 years as a teacher, because I was newer and I was gaining experience, and I was like motivated enough to have the opportunity to teach it was motivating enough to do it and not get paid a lot. And I was working other jobs. But then once I realized like, this is really what I want to do, and I need to make it work as my career, I decided like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on privates, and insurance doesn't cover private yoga yet. So I'm not going to be able to work with insurance. So it is going to be something that people who have the means and are ready to invest and able to invest, it's going to be for them. And so, sorry, I tend to like go off on tangents, but it's a vata. I have a lot of vata. But so if you look around my website, I think you get the idea that like, I think people who land there, my rates aren't advertised, but I think you can tell it's not, it doesn't seem like something that's going to cost $25. And I have an FAQ page, and one of the questions is like, what does this cost? And because I don't advertise my rates on there, I just said private yoga rates are similar to private psychotherapy rates, because my rates, I base my rates sort of similarly to what psychotherapists in the area charge. Partially because I believe that people's work with me has similar results to working in talk therapy, that it's deeply healing and transformative, and that it's about a therapeutic relationship, a one-on-one relationship. But let me kind of circle back, Monica, to like, in terms of if I did get to that point in a conversation where, like you said, the energy, clearly you could really feel it. It changed as soon as I told them my price. I do think that there's still hope at that point. And you can do what Kristen and I were kind of just talking about, and kind of coach the person on seeing it a little differently. And what I think you have to do in that situation is like not take it personally. That's really big. Like, you don't have to start to feel like you're some kind of horrible person just because your prices are what they are, because I think sometimes we take it kind of personally. We feel bad. We feel like we're stealing somebody's opportunity to do yoga, but we're not, and you can be really confident and sure of your prices, and sure that that's the worth of the offering. And you can communicate that. You can say, well, my prices are what they are. And you can say to them, like, I know it may not seem cheap to you, or it may not seem affordable, but I trust that it would be a really great investment in yourself. And, more and more people are making the decision to do this as an investment in themselves. And you can say, from my own experience, like there's nothing more valuable than a yoga practice. There's nothing more valuable than a consistent, dedicated yoga practice. And then you can also just kind of let that person go. It's okay to say, it's okay to refer. You can say, I know a great donation-based class, or I know a great class at the studio. You'll love the teacher. I'll send you to her. Tell her I sent you, And I've also found, last thing, because I know I can go on, the more that I say kind of like gracefully, no, thank you to the people and the opportunities that don't feel aligned for me, the more the things that are what I want seem to show up and come in.
Cool. That makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love talking about this stuff.
and to add to that too, like you said, it's not that we're taking away from their yoga experience, because we're not. I mean, I know in Denver, there are many avenues for donation-based or free yoga. I do Full Moon Yoga Club in the park all summer long. So that's a donation-based thing. The yoga studio that I primarily teach out of is donation-based. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind. If, we have to set our own value. How much do I need to live? And each one of us as an individual, I think, has to come up with that. And, part of me, because I really do want to help people who may not be able to afford my rates, part of me wants to hopes that I can set up something. I've even played with this idea of, what if I had a GoFundMe? And if I got X amount of dollars in this GoFundMe, then I would be able to give 6 free sessions to this person, and that would take a little bit of effort, and I'm not there yet with my practice because I need to build my practice first. But just thinking, like, I'm trying to think creatively, like there is money out there and there are people wanting to help. And so how could we make it more accessible for people who may not be able to pay our rates if we have that, that heart space of, I really want to work with this population who absolutely cannot afford my rates. Otherwise we're deciding very clearly, like, I need to earn this much per session because it's not a per hour job. It's just like massage therapy. You're not necessarily doing one after another. So we have to kind of decide, like, what is our own budget? What is our own value? And then stick with it clearly and be okay with that. But have referrals, have sources, like go talk to this person or go to that studio or whatever.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'd love to add to that. And then I want to answer Brittany's question. I love what you said, Kristen. GoFundMe is fantastic. I've used it at a time when I really wanted to continue my education and didn't feel like I had the funds to do it, but really felt like I needed to do it. Like it was so important to me to do more trainings at that point. And I did a GoFundMe, and I remember like feeling really uncomfortable about it because I was like, oh, I don't want to have to ask people for money. But it was such a great growth experience. And what I actually did was I didn't just ask for donations. I offered sessions and like offered yoga and body work in exchange for donations, like a sort of like, it was more of a sale than just collecting donations, and it helped me do these trainings. And there was something else, but
well, I've heard that too, to offer something in service. So my brother's done a GoFundMe. He lives in Southeast Asia and he's a photographer and is traveling. So he funds himself by, I'll send you this or this picture, or whatever size based on the donation. I also set up a GoFundMe. So I'm bringing my daughter to New York to sing on Broadway this summer. The price tag was, as a single mom and a yoga teacher, like way beyond what I could do. So I set up a GoFundMe, and I was amazed at how many people really wanted to help. They really did. So I think we get embarrassed about asking for help, and yet there's so many people who want to help, and I have to include myself in that too, if I had some extra money. So that's kind of a segue off.
Yeah, that's okay.
Marcus.
Yeah, so Brittany's question, how do you prepare for your private lessons? It's a great question. I feel like that's a question that I'm still contemplating for myself, and it's like an ongoing process, just like how do you prepare for your group classes? Like that's sort of an evolving process for a lot of teachers, I think. I mean, if I really have time and really make space to do like my ideal amount of preparation is to like roll out the mat and get on it and have a journal and like have my client in mind. And that's the cool, like, like when you do that for a group, you kind of have the group in mind, you kind of know like the style of the class, and sort of which people show up and like what modifications you might need to offer, depending on who shows up. But for a private session, I'm just thinking about that one person and their needs, and knowing that like the session's going to be at the end of the work day, and thinking about, if they've had a busy day at work, and I plan out the session in my journal, and I try, really ideally, like I feel the session in my body first. I think that's like every teacher kind of like that's what we hope to be able to do in our preparation. In reality, I don't always have time to do that. But like, I think what's sort of like the express version of that is like, as I'm walking over or on my way over to work with my client, I'm just kind of doing that in my head. I'm just kind of thinking about like, yeah, like what would be great for them this evening, both based on just like who they are and what their needs are, but also like where we are in our work together, Okay, bye, Anita. That's okay. Thank you. yeah, thinking like, what did we do last week and how can we build on that? Or like, what new thing can I bring today? If it, especially like with newer students who I'm like introducing to yoga, I like to feel out like, you know, sometimes I start them off with like sort of the same sequence for a while. And then I like to feel out like, is it time to change up the sequence? Should I add something new in? Brittany, is that what you meant? Like that kind of planning, like that kind of preparation? Does that answer your question? She's going to have to type.
Type in the chat box.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Can I just add to that, Emily?
Please.
One thing that I found is just working really well for me. You know, I work with a private client one-on-one right now, and we have such a great relationship now. She just really trusts me and knows that I'm going to always deliver her whatever she needs. Now I'm just starting to get into the habit of her space, and I say, how are you feeling? What is it that you need today?
Yeah.
And she'll say to me, you know what? My shoulders are killing me. And I said, okay, what I had in mind today is we were going to do more of a flow, but I think maybe some yin yoga would really help you right now. And she's like, oh, thank you. She's like, I was so hoping you were going to say yin yoga. And that's what I do. I just start asking them now, because what I may have in mind for a class plan and what I think is good for their body is not necessarily what they need at that point in time or that day, because their energy is different throughout the week, the month, what have you. Especially if you're working with women, our energies and our menstrual cycle, they play into our yoga practice very much. So you have to sort of shape shift how you bring in your class plans into private yoga. And actually, I find it almost a little bit easier because you're just focused on the one person. You're not now focusing on managing a class of 30, which is actually kind of nice. So just thought I'd kind of add that in there. It's just like a helpful tip.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you 1,000%. That's so my experience too, that a lot of the time I get there with a plan in mind and I say, how are you feeling? And then the plan goes out the window and I improvise something that makes more sense for what they're feeling. And I like to ask like, so sometimes you ask people, how are you feeling? And they're just like, fine, or like, good. And then sometimes I like to be like, okay, how are your shoulders? How are your hips? How are your knees? You know, because then they're like, oh, actually, I have this horrible pain in my back, and yeah, I'm exhausted, and yeah, love it.
Yeah, and being able to meet their needs. So Brittany mentioned the personalization aspect of being a private teacher, and it feels like it's absolutely that. And I know in the yoga therapy that I do, there's no planning at all. I don't even keep notes based on the previous session, because the method that I use is working with whatever is present in that moment, which means anything can show up. So that takes a little bit of skill, I think. If you're a newer teacher starting out, having some sort of plan is helpful. But I also think, like you mentioned, thinking about your client, like that's a meditation practice in itself. And Brittany and Solly are both on here who just finished YTT with me, but that's actually what I do when we start a YTT program. I do my best to learn everyone's names. We just had 24 in this last group, but I really do give an effort to meditate on each person, even if it's a brief moment of their head or their face and their name and kind of their demeanor before I go in to teach them. And I also do that with my classes. You know, I think of who usually comes to this class. What is the space like? That kind of thing. So I think you can absolutely do that with your private clients to an even greater degree, because you get to know them even better. So I think that's a beautiful way to think of it.
Yeah, I love that. I like the idea of meditating on the client or on the class. And yeah, just
when it gets really into almost the subtle body, like, can you sense, I mean, even here, can you sense who's on the screen, you know, just by feeling into it? I mean, it's one of those subtler things, but.
Yeah, it's really kind of magical. How unique everybody is. And like how much they contain as a human. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was wondering, early on, you mentioned niche. And I'm wondering if you have focused on a niche in terms of who your private clients are, who are you targeting? But also you mentioned it on the website, like it almost feels to me like if you're the kind of yoga teacher who does a little bit of everything, you should have a website for each one of those things. Do you know what I mean? So that it really gets optimized for that one thing.
Yeah.
But really deciding is yoga therapy my thing? Is one-on-one yoga my thing? Is events my thing?
Yeah, I think it's from Jen Sincero. She wrote You Are a Badass and You Are a Badass at Making Money. I love her books. And there's a quote from her that's like, you can't, or like, if you try to do everything, you can't do anything. And I think we see it a lot with yoga teachers because we're like really enthusiastic, really multi-talented, creative, sort of multi-potentialite type people. And because yoga is so vast and there's so many styles and so many branches off of yoga, that we have a lot of really kind of like a lot of tools in our toolkit. I mean, I really do think that like like one of the main factors, or like possibly the biggest thing in me picking up as many private clients as I have, is that I decided to focus on privates, and to stop thinking of it as like an on the side thing. That I took it upon myself to like make it my main thing, and that I, in the domain of my website, I, have the words there, and that I dedicated my website to private yoga, even though I do teach groups. And I mean, I don't teach a lot of groups anymore, but I do teach groups. And when I started building that website, I was still teaching groups, but I was curious. I was like, wait a minute, I already have enough groups, and what I really need more of in my life is privates. What if I made the website more about privates and less about groups? And it worked. Yeah, it's so simple, right?
And did you have some guidance in creating the language on your website to optimize for one-on-ones, or was it?
I mean, I love writing, and writing comes pretty naturally to me. And I wrote all the copy on my website, but I wrote it with like marketing concepts in mind, like really basic marketing concepts that I'd been learning, which like briefly, some of them include that like good marketing. This is a big one for yoga teachers. You guys write this down. Good marketing is focused on the customer or the audience or the prospective client. It's focused on them, and it's designed with them in mind. And it's not just about the service. And in our case, it's not just about the identity of the teacher. And I think that what a lot of yoga teachers do is they create a website, and they make the website very much about expressing who they are as a teacher. And, they have a lot of really beautiful photos of them in asana, and they maybe have a really extensive bio talking about how they got into yoga and why. And all of that is really beautiful. It's a really beautiful like expression of identity, and some clients might be really interested in that. But at the same time, like from more of a marketing perspective, especially with internet marketing, the internet is a place where people go and they're looking for stuff, and they want to find it, and they want to find it fast, and they want to make sure it's right for them, and they are comparing it to other things, and they're really kind of shopping around, and they're looking for the thing that's for them. And so truly to be more of service, to kind of like help guide and lead and coach our prospective clients into having the life-changing, transformative experience of doing yoga with us, we have to step away from making the website all about me, and talk to them. And if you look at my website, you'll see that I do that like in the first paragraph. I focus on them and what challenges they may be facing. I talk about life is busy and it's difficult to make it to a yoga class, and private yoga makes it easier for you. Yeah. So when they end up there, and that's the thing they're looking for, if they're sitting at home thinking, I really want to do yoga, but I just can't make it to a group class because my life is just too busy for that. I've literally spoken directly. I've like read their mind, you know, they're like, yes, this is for me. Right.
No,
Marketing's fun. Marketing is a lot of fun if you let it be.
Yeah.
I really love that, Emily, because I'm feeling pressured at times with this yoga Instagram culture to keep up with the, and that's not what true yoga, my business, is all about. And actually, I've actually started maybe entertaining the idea of photographing my students in asana as opposed to just me, because this is what a yoga body is. Boom. This is what a yoga body is, you know, like I don't, you know, you're working with me, and yes, I'm the one providing you this experience, if you will, but I just, I'm not in that mainstream culture right now. I can't do it. I'm not very good at it. And I don't know if I want to go too far in that because it's just not me.
Totally. I hear you. That I went through the same thing. Like, I remember feeling like, like, do I have to look great in a handstand, in a bikini, in order to be successful as a yoga teacher? Because I was like, what if I never am, you know? And then I was like, it can't be that. It can't be. And a lot of it was realizing that there are so many people that want to do yoga that also don't look good in a bikini and a handstand, or objectively good, right? But and who fear they may never be, and they would be thrilled to find an instructor who kind of shares that experience with them. Yeah.
And I think it goes down to, what are we marketing anyway? You know, are we marketing that you have to put your leg behind your head and look really good while you're doing it to be a yogi?
Yeah.
And it's not yoga. That's absolutely not what yoga's about. So thank you.
Yeah. Do we end at 11, or, I mean, it's 11 here.
Yeah.
Do we end in
I've
3
always
minutes?
had kind of a soft closing, but just, I guess, open it up. Did we answer everybody's questions? Does anyone have anything else? And then I've got a whole bunch of kids downstairs. So
I'm in no rush to end. I didn't mean to push us to end. I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to be able to close with sharing a little bit more about what I do and how I work with yoga teachers, if that's okay.
Yeah. I wanted you to be able to do that. So I think, let's see if there's any other specific questions that we could talk about to help everyone who's here.
Sure.
And then obviously give a little bit more information about what you do and how you might be able to help further if anyone wants to.
Sure, yeah. So any more specific questions?
I feel like I'm hogging the floor here. I'm sorry, but I can't get enough of advice and stuff just around, you know, all of this. But and I know this is sort of straying away from what we're talking about, but I wanted to get maybe your ladies' opinion about donation-based yoga. This is my first time working in a donation-based yoga studio. I'm really struggling. To help bring in more students, to get more students to come to my classes, and let alone but encourage them and show them the value of how, you know, their donations, you know, help our community grow. Is that really something I have any control of at the end of the day, or is that because the model that the owner has built encourages that sort of behavior in the student or the customer, if you will? I'm just really struggling.
Yeah.
And I mean, Emily, do you have some insight to that, or?
I do, but I'm happy to hear yours if you want to. Go ahead.
I just jumped in because Kindness Yoga, where I teach, is donation based, and they didn't. I think I would say, Monica, without knowing much more, it may be more the model of the studio and how the studio is. I mean, I think to a certain degree, we teach our clients or our students, or however you want to view it, and I know the studio that I teach for didn't go donation based until they had a foundation or a baseline of memberships. And now I think the work is to maintain a baseline of memberships so that they can truly continue to offer the donation. So it's a very fine line of becoming too flippant of like, oh yeah, pay $1, come in. And yes, your donation is helping us as a business offer donation-based yoga, you know. And so one thing that I appreciate is, as a yoga teacher, it doesn't affect my income. Like, I can truly offer that to anybody. I don't feel any pressure or any stress to sell or bring more people in. But I also am always in question of how are they maintaining or encouraging people to keep that membership. And just recently they started doing kind of free for members mini workshops, which I've given a couple. And that seems to be one nice offering. But I think the studio has to constantly kind of play with, what does that mean to be a member? What incentive can we give? So
yeah, and my compensation is directly tied to the amount of donations that come in. So I only earn 30%. So, you know, I've had classes of, the studio can only hold a maximum of 14. I've had, you know, almost a full class, and the students are, the maximum donation is like $40. So 30%, ladies, of $40 is pretty low, you know. And then these people come up to me and they're like, that was amazing. That was the best thing I've ever had. Thank you so much. You know, and it's just, it's confusing messages. It's confusing messages. So the biggest takeaway that I've gotten out of this is, okay, this may not be a good long-term solution for you, right? It's good for now, but I've just keep going back. Is there anything I can be doing to encourage them to donate more? Or is this really, at the end of the day, in the power of the owner? Like,
or maybe use that class to turn people into private clients of yours. I mean, that's kind of the opportunity that I would see there. And if you're not getting that turnover, then it may not. I mean, I would really look at that as like the business model of the studio is somehow the messages are just not meeting, of like, as a studio, we need a baseline. And so we need to encourage students to help us meet that baseline. And if it's not happening, then everyone's kind of suffering.
I wonder if the studio is having a hard time keeping their doors open, because, I mean, it's great in theory, donation based, but if you can't actually run your business and you're going to end up having to close, then why not just charge for the classes? Because, I mean, I think, you know, the truth is also, like, we're seeing more and more yoga available, like in sort of like public schools and college universities as courses, and, you know, homeless shelters and community centers. And sometimes it seems like, from at least in New York, it seems like a lot of the people that go to donation-based studios in New York probably could afford to just pay for class, but they're drawn to the donation-based model for maybe because they just don't really value yoga yet, and they think it's like kind of a cool bargain to be able to just not pay or pay $5. I don't know. I did my original 200-hour training at also a donation-based studio, and I was involved there for a little while. I have like mixed feelings on it. Yeah, I think, you know, if at the end of the day we're not able to be of service, like we can't keep our doors open, or we can't offer the class because we can't pay our bills, then it seems we've gone wrong somewhere with the model.
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I really appreciate your insight on that, just because it's something that I'm struggling with. Because I'm still new in this country, I'm just trying to I'm trying to make my own opportunities now, because I'm realizing relying on the studios or even the community centers here is just not working. So that's why I'm finding this whole private yoga business thing, working with them one-on-one, you know, and me being my own manager is going to work in the long run. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, because I don't know if this was confusing, just I was saying about like free yoga being more available in like institutionalized settings, that I was saying that that's like fantastic, and that donation-based studios are no longer the only place to do yoga at an affordable or at no cost. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something similar that, my husband even said to me, because he comes from a business background, he's an accountant. He's even said the same thing about the model. He said, the model really doesn't work because there are so many different offerings of yoga here. People are looking at it like, oh, why do I need to go there? There's 50 of them just down the street right here. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many options available to them. And I've talked with a few people about it, and some people have had some interesting perceptions like, oh, maybe it's not quality yoga if it's donation based, right? People have perceptions, right? People have, there could be stigmas tied to it that we don't know about, right? But that has been some feedback that I've heard out in the community, which isn't the case, obviously, but you never know.
Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to say or add, or?
Yep. I was just going to say, I don't have an opposition to donation-based kind of yoga, but I think that should be more the exception than the rule. Like, make your living and then do your seva.
Yeah.
Is kind of my thought on that. Because you got in this and it's still a business. And I think that's the biggest issue a lot of yogis have is the business aspect of it. And I've noticed that a lot of yogis struggle with business in general because, you kind of get into this because you want to, support people and all of that, but you also have to remember that you have to eat. So not feeling bad about charging. And I've fallen into that too. And like, I'm a businesswoman, and when I first did my private classes, I was like, I don't even know what to charge. I kind of stumbled into this one that I had. And it was working with developmentally disabled adults. And I had gone in and charged too little, actually. And it was interesting because the company I was working with, they said, actually, you're way undercharging and you need to charge more. I was like, oh my gosh, that's just weird. And in my opinion, I was charging a lot. I mean, just for reference, I told them it would cost them $80 an hour, and they're like, that's way too low. So I ended up charging them $100 an hour, and then they were fine with that. So don't undersell yourself.
That's a pretty awesome example. Thanks for sharing. I also had a client who I told was $80, and she was like, oh, no, you came to my house, you get $100. So that's really great.
Yeah, I'd love to share, like, this is something I'm really big on, and I feel like this is life changing, and I would like if this could maybe be like a closing comment, just because it's late here and I need to get to bed. But the thing about like setting your rates that I've learned is, like, we have to ask ourselves, what is the rate that feels nourishing, that feels exciting, that feels motivating, and that helps me be of the highest service possible to the client, right? Like, we can't just set rates based on like industry rates or what we think the person can or can't afford, like, because that we don't know ever. Like, you can't know that until you get into a conversation with them about it. But I really believe in like pricing based on like taking care of yourself first. Like you said, Michelle, that you gotta be able to eat first, and that something like offering a donation-based class or working pro bono with a client becomes a lot more possible once we have our own needs met and we feel nourished by the money and by the work, and we're actually more able than to be of service, because we're not even really, like, are we of service if we're showing up to the session feeling kind of like, this doesn't really pay enough, like, I know my time is worth more than this, then we're not showing up as our best selves. So yeah.
Thank you, Emily. I think that was great. Great closing statement. As a whole,
Yeah.
the industry, I think we all need to change our money mindset around what we're offering, how much time and energy, and also financial investment we've put into our own trainings. So
Yeah.
something out of that as well.
Yeah, it's tricky because like we don't have professional licensure, and so there's a lot of vagueness. There's a lot of like gray area about professionalism, but I love that you, Kristen, are somebody who's creating like a culture of professionalism and engaging people in these kind of conversations.
Well, thanks. It's important to me, especially because I feel like I've had to every step of the way and the last 10 years create my own career path, and there really is not a career path for yoga teachers, so we really are in that phase of creating it. But if we can all see ourselves as professionals, then I think that kind of elevates the profession as a whole. So thank you, everyone. Did you want to give some information?
Yeah, I'll just wrap up with that. Yeah, so you all have my website. It's privateyogabrooklyn.com. And feel free to look at that website just as a resource in terms of like understanding what a website that has potential to really generate a lot of private yoga leads looks like, what kind of features it has. But also have a look at my page about coaching for yoga teachers. And it lists my main offerings, which include my free Facebook group, which maybe some of you are already in. I think, Monica, you said you are. My free Facebook group is called Mastering the Business of Private Yoga. And I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. And I talk about a different topic related to the business of building your private clientele or working one-on-one with people. The Facebook group is free. And then I have a one-on-one individual coaching program that's virtual coaching, and it's weekly calls with me with unlimited follow-up in between and personalized homework assignments with a lot of accountability. And that's really for people that are like sure they want to build a private clientele and they're looking for some support with it, some hand-holding and some accountability. And then another really exciting thing that I do, and I just did it this weekend, is it's a small group coaching retreat. And so it's for 6 people, and I have it here in my home in Brooklyn. It's for 6 teachers, and it's all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And I've been saying it's sort of like part retreat and part yoga business boot camp. So there's like lunch and dinner included, and it's really cozy, and we're all hanging out, and we're really diving into like the mindset and the like inner work of like healing your relationship to money and knowing your inherent sense of self-value and worth, but also like the nitty-gritty of the marketing and the advertising and the strategy. So the next one for that is October 27th and 28th. And I have 4 spots left. So let me know if you're interested in that. We can do a one-on-one call to talk about it more. Okay.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much. I mean, from Australia to Virginia, and Anita had to leave, but I think we're kind of covering to New York, awesome. A lot of different areas. So yeah, and I'd love to hear from all of you. Time. Absolutely. Well, and Emily, absolutely. I'd love to hear from you if you have any feedback for me or for the Business of Yoga page or for this call itself. I'm still learning how to do this whole thing. So yeah. Thanks, Michelle, for being here again.
You seem like you've been doing it forever. You're awesome.
Well, thank you. Well, okay. I will be posting what's coming up next month. I haven't decided yet, but I'm open to taking ideas. So if any of you have any, you can message me or email me. So, all
awesome.
Right.
I'd love to join again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Monica. Bye,
Bye,
Michelle.
take care.
Bye, Kristen. Bye, Solly. Bye, Brittany.